Hello, friends. Imagine closing your eyes for a moment and letting the world around you slip away. The cars outside, the buzzing of phones, the rush of the modern day, it all fades until you find yourself standing in a world that is almost unrecognizable. The air is cool, tinged with smoke from a distant fire. The ground beneath your bare feet is rough, scattered with pebbles and dirt. Ahead of you, a group of figures huddles near the mouth of a cave, their bodies wrapped in furs, their movements deliberate yet unhurried. You are no longer in the 21st century. You have slipped thousands upon thousands of years into the past, into the life of the very first humans, what we might call cavemen. But before we sink too deeply into this journey, let me pause for a moment. So before we get comfortable and drift into this story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a quick comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is there right now. It always fascinates me to know where these stories find their home. Now, with that out of the way, let's step inside the shadows of the past. Picture the early morning. The sky is gray, carrying the faint promise of sunlight that will soon stretch across endless plains. A caveman rises from his bed of straw and animal hides. His hair is long and tangled, his body lean from constant movement. Around him, others stir, his family, his small group, his tribe. For early humans, survival was never an individual act. It was always shared. To live meant to rely on one another, to guard the young, to care for the weak, to move together when food became scarce. The cave is cold. Its stone walls are damp, its ceiling streaked with black soot from countless fires. The hearth at the center still glows faintly, but the flames have died down during the night. One of the older members of the group kneels and carefully feeds it with dried twigs and grass, coaxing it back to life. Fire is not just warmth. Fire is safety. It keeps predators at bay. It cooks the tough meat that otherwise would be impossible to chew. It provides light, comfort, and a sense of control in a world where so little was certain. Without fire, they were vulnerable. With fire, they had power. As the sun climbs higher, the tasks of the day begin. Some of the men and women gather their simple tools, sharp stones chipped into points, wooden spears hardened by fire, baskets woven from reeds. They will head out in search of food. The roles are not always as strict as we sometimes imagine. While men often hunted larger animals, women gathered roots, berries, and nuts, and at times joined in the hunt as well. The children watch, learning by imitating, their eyes sharp, their movements quick. For them, every day is a lesson in survival. The group sets out across the plains. Imagine the landscape. Vast stretches of grassland broken by forests, rivers glistening in the distance, herds of animals moving steadily as they search for water. There are dangers everywhere. A careless step could draw the attention of a predator, a lion, a wolf, even a bear. But there is also opportunity. The hunters scan the horizon for signs, the distant flicker of movement, the faint tracks pressed into the earth, the droppings of animals left behind. Their lives depend on observation, patience, and timing. Meanwhile, those who remain behind prepare other necessities. A woman squats near the fire, scraping the hide of a deer with a sharp stone. She works carefully, stripping away flesh, softening the skin, shaping it into something wearable. Clothing is more than comfort. It is survival against the cold. Others repair tools, binding stone tips to wooden handles with strips of sinew. A teenager tries to copy the process, fumbling at first, then slowly learning the rhythm. This is how knowledge is passed down. There are no books, no lessons, no written guides. There is only the repetition of action, the steady sharing of skill from one generation to the next. As the day wears on, hunger becomes a constant companion. A small group returns from foraging, carrying handfuls of berries, roots, and a cluster of mushrooms carefully inspected to avoid the poisonous kind. These are shared equally, for survival depends on fairness. If one person eats while another starves, the group weakens. If everyone shares, the group endures. This sense of community, this unspoken agreement of mutual reliance, is one of the earliest forms of what we might call civilization. When the hunters return, they are weary but proud. Today, fortune has favored them. A deer lies across a makeshift stretcher of branches. The kill will feed them for days. Immediately, the group gathers around, working together to butcher the animal, preserving as much as possible. The meat will be roasted, dried, or smoked. The bones will be broken for marrow, the hides stretched for clothing, the sinew used for tools. Nothing is wasted. Every part has a purpose. And then, when the day's labor is done, something remarkable happens. They gather by the fire. The flames dance on their faces as the night deepens, and someone begins to speak. Not in words we would recognize, but in sounds, gestures, and stories. Perhaps they tell of the hunt, exaggerating details for effect. Perhaps they pass on warnings of dangerous animals, or describe where food was last found. Or perhaps they tell myths, early attempts to explain the mysteries of the world, the stars above, the thunder in the sky. This moment, gathered around the fire, is the heart of early human life. It is here that culture begins. Now, as you picture this scene, let yourself notice the rhythm of their existence. There is hardship, yes. There is cold, hunger, and danger. But there is also routine, cooperation, and even joy. The laughter of children playing with sticks, the quiet satisfaction of a tool well made, the warmth of firelight against the dark. These things belong to cavemen just as much as to us. The fire flickers, casting long shadows that dance across the rough stone walls of the cave. For a moment, you notice markings etched into the stone. Simple at first glance, lines, handprints, shapes of animals. But when you look closer, you see something extraordinary. These are not random scratches. These are deliberate symbols, created with intention. They are the first whispers of art, the first expressions of human imagination. Imagine a child pressing their hand against the wall, blowing pigment around it through a hollow bone, leaving behind the silhouette of their palm. Thousands of years later, that print still remains, a silent message across time. I was here. I existed. To us, it is history. To them, it was life. Art was not decoration alone. It carried meaning. Perhaps it was a ritual before the hunt, a way of calling upon the spirits of the animals. Perhaps it was storytelling, preserving the memory of great hunts or dangers survived. Whatever the reason, it was one of the first ways humans set themselves apart, not just surviving, but making sense of survival. And alongside art came belief. Cavemen lived in a world that could be harsh and merciless. Thunderstorms rolled across the sky. Lightning split the heavens. Rivers flooded without warning. Without science to explain these forces, they turned to the unseen. Spirits, ancestors, forces of nature, these became part of their understanding. A carved figurine might represent a mother goddess, a symbol of fertility and life. Bones arranged carefully might be offerings to animals they had hunted, a way of showing respect, or perhaps fear, for the creatures on which their lives depended. Religion, in its earliest form, was woven into survival. To believe was to find comfort. To believe was to feel a sense of control, however small, over a world that often seemed impossible to predict. Now let us step deeper into their daily existence. Relationships within the tribe were vital. A single person could not survive alone for long. Bonds between individuals, mates, siblings, friends, were more than personal. They were practical. A mother nursed not only her own child, but sometimes helped another. An older man, too frail to hunt, still shared his knowledge of tracking, of the stars, of hidden water sources. Everyone, no matter their strength, had a role. And yet, conflict still existed. Resources were limited, and sometimes groups clashed. Imagine two tribes meeting near a river. Both need water, both depend on fish from the stream. Voices rise, spears are raised. In such moments, survival may come down not only to skill in hunting, but to the ability to defend one's place. The line between life and death, peace and violence, was thin. Still, cooperation often won over conflict. Tribes traded, exchanged goods, shared knowledge of new lands. Slowly, across generations, the foundations of society began to form. But perhaps the greatest challenge cavemen faced was not other humans. It was the earth itself. Imagine the cold creeping in as the ice age deepens. Glaciers move slowly across the land, swallowing valleys, changing rivers, shifting forests. Food becomes harder to find. Animals migrate farther, herds thin, plants wither. The people must follow. They are not rooted in one place. They are wanderers, chasing survival wherever it might be. And yet, in this hardship, innovation emerges. They learn to sew furs more tightly, to craft shelters of wood, stone, and bone. They sharpen their tools, create traps, invent new ways to hunt. Each adaptation is a step forward, proof of the resilience buried in their nature. Now, picture the social fabric of their world. At night, around the fire, stories are told not only of the day's hunt, but of ancestors long gone. A child might ask, "Where did the sun come from?" And an elder answers with a tale of a great bird carrying fire across the sky. These myths are not foolish. They are the beginnings of explanation, the seeds of culture, the framework by which people pass down wisdom and values. For the children, play is more than amusement. Two boys wrestle in the dirt, practicing strength. A girl sharpens a stick, pretending it is a spear. Through games, they prepare for adulthood, for the weight of survival that will soon rest on their shoulders. Their laughter rings out, light against the heaviness of the world, proof that even in struggle, joy can be found. Think, too, of their connection to nature. Every sound is a signal, every scent a clue. The rustling of grass might mean a rabbit hiding or a predator stalking. The wind carries information of storms to come. Unlike us, separated from the natural world by walls, glass, and machines, cavemen lived inside it, attuned to it in every breath and step. To them, the land was not separate, it was life itself. Now let us return to the fire, where night has fully fallen. The tribe gathers close, wrapped in furs. Sparks rise into the darkness, carried upward into a sky thick with stars. For a caveman, the heavens were a mystery beyond comprehension. Countless lights burned above, steady and eternal, while life below was short and fragile. Perhaps they wondered, even then, if the stars were ancestors watching or spirits guiding them. In their silence, in their unspoken awe, we see the roots of our own wonder. Pause for a moment and realize this. What we call cavemen were not so different from us. Their hearts beat with the same rhythm. Their fears, their hopes, their love for their children, all of these were human. Their lives were short, often harsh, but they were filled with meaning. And in their caves, their tools, their art, and their stories, they laid the first stones of a path that would one day lead to us. The fire burns lower now, embers glowing softly, warmth fading into the cool air of night. The tribe curls together, their bodies pressed close for heat. Some sleep quickly, exhausted from the day's hunt. Others lie awake, staring at the shifting shadows on the stone ceiling. A child stirs, murmuring in a dream, while an elder breathes slowly, his face carved with wrinkles of years lived through winters and summers. Sleep, for the caveman, was never taken for granted. It was a fragile thing. To close one's eyes meant trust, that the tribe would remain alert enough to protect one another. Outside, wolves howl, their voices carried by the wind. An owl swoops silently across the dark sky. Danger is never far, but the fire keeps it at bay, at least for a little while. And in the rhythm of these nights, something extraordinary happens. Slowly, over generations, memory and story intertwine with sleep. Dreams become important. A hunter wakes and says he dreamed of following a deer into the forest. And later, when he does the same in daylight, he finds the animal waiting, as if the dream had guided him. Dreams are not dismissed. They are woven into belief, into decision-making, into the very way these people live. Now, step back and think of the progression. From the first chipped stones to sharper blades, from hand-carved spears to bows, from scratching lines in the dirt to painting walls with ochre and charcoal, every step was survival. Yes, but also growth. They were not frozen in time, as we often imagine. They adapted. They experimented. They failed and tried again. Cavemen were not primitive in spirit. They were inventors, problem solvers, dreamers at the edge of discovery. Let us picture the seasons turning. Spring brings rivers swollen with melted snow, fish flashing in the water. Summer fills the meadows with berries, nuts, and herbs. Autumn paints the forest gold, and the people gather stores of food. Winter descends heavy, harsh, endless nights pressing down on the tribe. Each season brings both gifts and trials. To live meant learning the cycles, respecting them, finding a rhythm within them. Children grow quickly in such a world. By the time a boy or girl reaches 10, they know how to set a snare, how to carry fire safely, how to recognize the tracks of deer, rabbit, or wolf. Their play has become practice, and practice turns into necessity. There is little childhood as we know it today. Innocence is brief. Responsibility comes early. And yet there is pride in learning. Each skill passed down is survival secured. One more chance for the tribe to endure. Among the people, leadership is not fixed by titles. The strongest hunter may lead during the chase, but the wisest elder's voice carries weight when choices must be made. Leadership is flexible, shifting with the needs of the moment. Power is not about domination, but about survival, about guiding the group safely through uncertainty. And uncertainty is constant. A storm might flood the cave. A herd might not return to the valley. A fire might rage out of control. In such moments, resilience becomes their greatest strength. To live as a caveman was not to be certain of tomorrow. It was to wake each day and face it anyway, with courage carved into every decision. Now let's turn to the legacy they left behind. Today, when we uncover bones carefully buried with tools and ornaments, we realize something profound. They did not see death as the end of existence, but as a passage. To bury the dead was to honor them, to carry their memory forward. This is the spark of ritual, of culture, of civilization itself. Think of it. Those early humans, with their rough tools and flickering fires, began practices that echo into our lives today. When we gather to tell stories, when we sit with family to share food, when we look up at the stars and wonder, we are not so different. The thread stretches back through thousands of years, linking us to them in ways we often forget. And yet, their world was vanishing even as it grew. The Ice Age receded, climates shifted, animals disappeared, and new challenges rose. Slowly, the cavemen gave way to farmers, to settlers, to the first villages and cities. Their caves grew silent, but their memory remained carved into stone walls, buried in the soil, left behind in tools, bones, and fire pits. So what was it really like to be a caveman? It was harsh, yes. Life was short, and death was never far. But it was also filled with meaning, with bonds of family and tribe, with the wonder of art and story, with the first sparks of belief and imagination. To live as a caveman was to be deeply, intimately connected to the earth, to rely on one another, and to walk always at the edge of survival and discovery. And as you listen now, drifting between wakefulness and rest, think of that connection. Think of the firelight glowing on cave walls, the warmth of shared bodies against the cold, the steady beat of life persisting against all odds. Think of the handprints on the walls, pressed there thousands of years ago, still speaking to us today. Before we end, let me gently remind you, if you've enjoyed this journey into the distant past, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a quick comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'm always fascinated to see how far these stories travel across the world. Now, let the story fade into silence as the cavemen drift into dreams, as the stars wheel overhead, as the fire dies to embers. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and imagine the deep, timeless rhythm of human existence carrying you into sleep. Rest now. The past will keep its secrets until morning,